Hello and welcome to the Vulgar Eclectic. My name is Matt and thank you for checking out my channel. Today I'm just going to give a quick reading update. This is going to be a pretty dull video visually, I'm afraid. Some days it's really hard for me to do much with the computer because of physical problems. And that's been the case the last few days. So I was thinking of not recording anything. But then I thought, what the heck, I'll just do something anyway. And sometimes wanting things just right results in it just not happening. So I'm just going to go for it here and make the best of it. This week I finished reading Downward to the Earth by Robert Silverberg. I started a video reaction to that book for the same reason that I just mentioned. I stopped recording it for a while, but I'll get back to that, and maybe that'll be the next video. So I won't say too much about it here, other than that I enjoyed it very much. It's a science fiction novel. Deals a lot with issues of colonialism and spiritual journey. I've read a few other books by Silverberg, and I've enjoyed them. I think he's a good writer. I revisited an old favorite poem of mine by Matthew Arnold, Dover Beach. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with that poem. It's wonderful. Two of the characters in Downward to the Earth reference the last few lines of that poem. And it's such a good poem. I spent a lot of time in bed during a certain period of this physical problem I've been dealing with. And one of the ways I dealt with that time, I guess, is memorizing some poems. And then I could repeat them to myself. It was really a nice tool to deal with some of that time in bed. And Dover Beach was one of the ones I memorized. It has such mood to it that so appropriately matches the themes. Wonderful poem. So I revisited that. I also revisited another poem that I really enjoy called Robin Hood by John Keats. It's a fun poem, fairly short, so I'll read it here quickly. Robin Hood by John Keats. To a friend. No, those days are gone away, and their hours are old and gray, and their minutes buried all under the downtrodden pall of the leaves of many years. Many times have winter's shears, frozen north and chilling east, sounded tempests to the feast of the forest's whispering fleeces, since men knew nor rent nor leases. No, the bugle sounds no more, and the twanging bow no more. Silent is the ivory shrill, past the heath and up the hill. There is no mid-forest laugh, where lone echo gives the half to some wight amazed to hear, jesting deep in forest drear. On the fairest time of June you may go, with sun or moon, or the 7 stars to light you, or the polar ray to right you. But you never may behold Little John or Robin bold, never one of all the clan, thrumming on an empty can some old hunting ditty, while he doth his green way beguile to fair hostess merriment down beside the pasture Trent. For he left the merry tale messenger for spicy ale. Gone the merry Morris din, gone the song of Gamelin, gone the tough-belted outlaw, idling in the greena shaw. All are gone away and past. And if Robin should be cast sudden from his turfed grave, and if Marian should have once again her forest days, she would weep and he would craze. He would swear for all his oaks, fallen beneath the dockyard strokes, have rotted on the briny seas. She would weep that her wild bees sang not to her. Strange that honey can't be got without hard money. So it is, yet let us sing. Honor to the old bowstring, honor to the bugle horn, honor to the woods unshorn, honor to the Lincoln green, honor to the archer keen, honor to tight Little John and the horse he rode upon, honor to bold Robin Hood, sleeping in the underwood, honor to Maid Marian and to all the Sherwood clan. Though their days have hurried by, let us too a burden try. Okay, that was fun to read. I used to imagine as a little kid that I would grow up to be Robin Hood, and I had a friend whose first name was John, and he was bigger than me and heavier set. So perfect. I imagined him as Little John and me as Robin Hood, and I had this idea that we would hide out in the woods and borrow food from people's gardens at night to eat. One Christmas, I got a leather bag from an aunt of mine, a great aunt, and I thought it was so neat. It had a little drawstring on it, and I thought I should find a hollow reed of some sort to store in that leather bag and keep it on my belt. just in case I ever had to leap from a flaming rooftop tower of a castle into a moat. Okay, that's fun. What else did I read this week? I think that's really about it. I started reading another play by Seneca. So yeah, I started reading The Trojan Women by Seneca. It's a play that is, of course, based on the play with the same title written by Euripides. I've read Euripides' version and liked it very much. And thus far, I'm enjoying the version that Seneca wrote a great deal. Wonderful, wonderful imagery and fantastic writing. The translation is, in my opinion, great. So far, there's a strong focus on the son of Achilles, which I don't remember that strong of a focus on him in the play that Euripides wrote, although it's been some time since I've read that one. I may have to revisit some of that just to compare and contrast a bit. And then I guess the only other thing I would mention is that I participated in an online comic auction, a live stream comic auction. I've never done anything like that before, and I stumbled across it randomly, unexpectedly, and decided to participate a little bit, and I actually had a heck of a good time. It was a lot of fun. There were a handful of people participating in a conversation, and that was fun to listen to, and there was a wide variety of comics and really reasonable prices, so I picked up a handful of them. I'll be excited to have those delivered. When I do get them, maybe I'll make a little video about them. Yeah, and that's really about it, I guess. I'm trying to think if there was something else. I guess so. Recently I read an article about this person. He's a neuroscientist who has stated pretty strongly that he doesn't believe that addiction is a disease. He thinks that model isn't very helpful or very useful. And he's certainly not the first person or the only person to make that argument, but it's a strong argument coming from a person with his background and the research he's been doing. I read it. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. One moment, I'm going to stop this video and look it up. Okay, his name is Marc Lewis, M-A-R-C, Marc Lewis. And I read an article from The Guardian that's dated from the 30th of August, 2015. So it's not a new, definitely not a new interview or anything, but I have a friend who's a criminologist, and he was talking about some of this guy's work, and he sent me this link to the article as a kind of a short version of some of his ideas. So yeah, that was interesting to read. I had mentioned previously getting into this television show called T.J. Hooker, an old 80s police drama. Well, I hit a wall with finding some of the episodes, so I stopped watching that. But because I had been watching that, I had a recommendation to watch Hunter, it's called. It's another police drama from the early 80s, I believe, with an ex-NFL football player in the lead role. And so far, I've watched a few of those, or just a couple of those, I think, not as many as I did the T.J. Hooker one. I think I watched 5 or 6 episodes of T.J. Hooker. And now I've watched 2 of Hunter. And I don't know what it is. I don't know why I'm having so much fun watching that kind of a show right now, but I really enjoyed it. Great fun. And the female lead character, she becomes his new partner, Hunter's new partner. Hunter is the guy's last name, this officer, this detective, Rick Hunter. And his partner, whose name I don't remember right now, she is quite the character. Wow. Talk about an empowered female character. And this was from the early 80s. She's great. There's this one scenario early on, I think in the second episode, where they're interviewing or trying to get some information out of this guy. And they decide to do the good cop, bad cop routine. And Hunter assumes that he'll be the bad cop. And she says, the lady character says, I'll be the bad cop. And he says, like hell you will. And she stands her ground and says, no, I'm going to be the bad cop. And sure enough, she's the bad cop, but doesn't get anywhere at first. And so Hunter says, well, I guess it's time for me to take over, something like that. And she says, oh, I'm not done yet. And she goes in and really lays it on heavy and gets the information that she wants from the person they're interrogating. So anyway, then there's just lots of scenes of her saving herself or taking care of the situation or taking out the bad guy. It's just really, really fun in that regard. So apparently I'm suddenly developing a fondness for 80s police dramas. Very strange. Would not have predicted that. I also added a couple of postcards I have a postcard collection. It's one of the things I've taken up is I've been dealing with this physical problem because many of the hobbies I normally do, I've been not able to pursue for a while. So I've kind of looked for other things to become interested in, and postcard collecting is one of those things. So I had 2 new postcards. One I had a while ago, but I didn't have access to it until recently, even though I'd gotten it quite a while ago. The other one I just got. So I'll show those actually here. There's this first one is probably the strangest postcard I have ever seen. I'm not sure exactly how old the postcard is, but it has writing on the back indicating that it requires a 1-cent stamp for domestic use and 2 cents for international. So I'm not really sure how old it is, but it's pretty old. I don't know what people were doing in the 19-teens to come up with this bizarre scenario on this card. Maybe somebody can offer a suggestion on what this is supposed to represent, or what in the world the backstory is here. I don't know. I love it. It's wild. And then this other one I've got is, before I ever collected postcards consciously, I had come across this really incredible postcard at a at a flea market. And I picked it up just because I was just really intrigued, I guess, by the image on the postcard. I ended up framing it, and it's one of the few things I have framed, I guess, on a table. And I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know what the heck it was. I almost thought it was a photograph. It was black and white, and it was just very, very beautiful. And it was this scene from antiquity. I thought maybe it was from a play or something. I really had no idea, and I don't know why I didn't think to research it more at the time. But finally, the other day, I was looking at it, and someone in my family asked me about it, and I said, I found this at a flea market, and I explained how I came across it, and I looked more closely, and there was some information. It had a title in French and a person's last name, so I thought, well, man, we should look this up and see if we can figure out what the story is behind this. And I quickly learned that it is an oil painting by a Swiss painter named Charles Gleyre, and in translation, it's called Lost Illusions. So it's actually in color oil painting, and I had no idea that it was an oil painting, or that there were colors to the image or anything like that. And so that was really interesting to learn that. And apparently the painter said that it was based on a vision that he had one night while he was on the banks of the Nile River. It's supposed to represent this older poet who is sitting rather pensively looking out at this boat, this bark that is moving away from him, and has all these different characters aboard who represent his illusions, the illusions that he had in his youth. There are these young women and what looks like to be maybe Cupid or something like that, and they are playing musical instruments. It looks like the setting sun, maybe. I suppose it could be the rising, but it looks like there's a sliver of a moon up in the corner. Again, it's representing apparently the poet in the foreground there, coming to realize that many of his earlier ideas are in fact illusions that are now drifting away from him. So I thought that was really neat, and I looked around a bit and found online another postcard of that same image, but this time with color. So this one right here, and I just thought it was really cool. So now I have both this one in color and the old black and white one that I first found, and eventually led me to, several years later, learning about a painting that I really admire and a painter I had never known about. So those are fun additions to my postcard collection. And that, I think, about wraps it up. I don't have too much more to say, but thank you very much for listening to this video, and I hope you make it back here sometime for another one. Thanks a lot, and happy reading.